Gaming disorder is officially going to become a disease. Yeah, seriously, the World Health Organization now recognize gaming disorder as a disease. The implications here could be massive, and suffice to say, it's been met with anger, confusion, and ridicule. So there's a lot to break down. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Industry Report, the near daily show where we go deep into the most interesting gaming headlines. It's a pretty darn busy time. We've got another report about to go up on the anti-loot box bill that now has bipartisan support in the US Senate, plus another episode of the Roundup coming very soon. So, ring that bell, let's get going. So what's happened? Well, the World Health Organization has revised the ICD, the International Classification of Diseases, to include gaming disorder as a disease. Now, does this mean you're going to, touch a Fortnite advertisement and become a hopeless addict to gaming disorder? Well, there's quite a bit more to it. So, the ICD-11 has been adopted unanimously by the WHO and in 2020 will come official. So, from that point on, gaming disorder will officially be a disease. Now, the ICD is not a legally binding thing, but it is the basis from which many healthcare professionals and policymakers will operate, with the latter being a particularly important point of concern in my view, as this classification would give certain lawmakers ammunition to use against our industry. Now, disease is of course a very strong word. It's one that, it's associated with, catching something nasty and dying. A disease simply, though, by definition, is an abnormality, be it a physical thing or a mental thing, that's typically not caused by, a direct injury. Does gaming being a disease seem absurd? Well, somewhat, yes. I think this is likely missing the point. I think it's fundamentally something that's more down to addictive behavior based on your brain's own reward system, dopamine and all that, which is not unique to gaming, but we'll go a lot deeper in that later. So, what is gaming disorder? According to the World Health Organization? Well, it's a pattern of persistent or recurring gaming behavior manifested by impaired control of gaming, increasing priority given to gaming to the extent that it takes precedence over other life interests and daily activities, and then the escalation of that behavior in the face of negative consequences. It goes on to say that it's a behavior pattern of sufficient severity to impair personal, family, social, educational, occupational, or other important areas of functioning, with the pattern being episodic or recurrent, typically being seen over a period of 12 months, but sometimes within a more compressed time frame if the requirements are met with severe symptoms. So that's the official classification. They did also issue a Q&A. Now that says the gaming disorder has been included because of the available evidence, expert consensus, the development of treatment programs, and the increased attention from healthcare professionals. They say it only impacts a small portion of people who play games, obviously, but that all gamers should be vigilant of their own patterns of behavior, particularly if they think gaming has ended up for them coming ahead of their psychological health or their social function. Now, before we hop over to the analysis part of this video, let's cover the industry response. The UK trade body UKIS, their response was pretty typical, so that's the one we're going to use here. They said that there remains significant debate over the issue. They refuted the WHO's claims of consensus. They said that they are concerned that the decision is not based off any good evidence, and that as an industry, they already promote healthy patterns of play by providing information and tools, saying that moderation is key to finding a good balance and enjoyment of the hobby. They highlighted the role of video games in promoting and helping people with mental health, such as tackling anxiety and depression, and they said they're committed to promoting the overwhelmingly positive benefits of gaming, pointing out gaming's role in stress reduction, building friendships, scientific research, building teamwork, telling difficult stories, and providing enjoyment. And while I think many people in this audience will disagree with, say, what UKI and the ESA will say over things like loot boxes and, gambling, I think that this is a very agreeable statement that will be in line with what the vast majority of gamers have experienced. And from my own quick experience, don't worry, I'll be quick here, I learned market arbitration through playing the World of Warcraft auction house. Through that, I was able to buy and sell goods on digital platforms and earned about £4,500 over 6 months when I was 17 years old. Did a lot for my confidence, a very positive thing, so that was a good thing the gaming brought me. Gaming helped me a lot when I was younger, including building my teamwork skills. It made me new friends. It was and is a fantastic jumping off point for so much of just my learning. Things like history, gets you into that, as well as increasing my understanding of other people's perspectives and situations. Take that scene in the middle of The Last of Us. Thankfully, that's something I'll probably not experience in my real life, but that depiction was certainly powerful and educational, and it's the type of thing that will help to expand people's viewpoints on a wide range of complex issues. It has also formed the basis, of course, of my current work with the two YouTube channels and the game studio, right now employing 7 people full-time and 3 more contractors. So suffice to say, gaming has been transformative and positive in my life and the lives of many, and I'm just one of millions of stories of all the good that the gaming industry, just the games as a medium, I suppose, maybe less the industry, but as a medium, have done. So with that, let's talk about the WHO categorization. I think parts of it are actually reasonable, even though it kind of doesn't have much to do with gaming, and you'll see why as we progress here. It talks about the hobby taking precedence over other elements of life, and a person's, sort of control and control over their patterns of behavior being impaired. It says, daily activities and life interests. That's important. When they say life interests, that means things that a patient knows they want, but cannot do because of their gaming problem. And, daily activities, things like showering, cleaning, eating. If you go into a person's house and you smell the stench of BO, you find the place in a mess, and you see somebody who's not happy about their situation, but also feels paralyzed and unable to change it, it's not unreasonable, I think, to say that in a case like that, an extreme case, that there might be a gaming disorder. As Yuki themselves say, all things in moderation, or I would at least say, a balance of one's choosing that is not destructive. It's very telling, actually, that gaming disorder is ICD code 6C51. Code 6C50 is gambling disorder, and they have very similar wording. I mean, it's basically a copy, paste, and replace job. Gaming disorder is going to come around for many of the same reasons as a gambling disorder or an eating disorder. I think an easy way to think about this is, this. Does the disorder come from your brain's own reward system, or is it exogenous chemicals? Those external to the bodies, like, say, nicotine, right? Now, I'm not saying that all addictive habits that aren't a hard chemical addiction are the same thing. I'm not saying that at all. But in many cases, there are similar symptoms. Here's a great, totally different example. If you go to a gym, you'll see these massive guys with body dysmorphia who think they're really small. And if you look at their patterns of behavior, then you'll see that they're not able to healthily prioritize their working out in the gym, and they'll often work out at the expense of other aspects of their life. And the same can be seen with people who maybe overeat. In both of these cases, it's less about food addiction or gym addiction, and it's more about there being some sort of underlying psychological issue that the person is struggling with that is leading to those addictive or, not exactly perfect or ideal patterns of behavior. And I personally worry about the categorization of these things. People, especially parents, are going to think that video games specifically are the problem, not the underlying issues that their child may have that are presenting themselves as playing games to the point of being, a detriment. So overall, I'd worry this would lead to the pathologization of video games, and that would be a bad thing overall. Now, with that being said, is there something special or different about games? I think yes. I think that video games have a greater potential to psychologically engage people because of their enhanced interactivity, and I think that's a bit of a double-edged sword. I truly believe that as an art form, games have the furthest to go when creating meaningful experiences, and that much of that's because the top end of what is possible with an interactive medium, it's so hard to achieve, but it just seems so high, there's so much you can do that will be so effective. And that's a unique strength of video games, but that cuts both ways, as evidenced by, I think, many gamer-originating criticisms of, say, loot boxes and the keenly psychologically aware game loops of some games. Well, it's true that some games could also unhealthily engage people in a deeper way than, say, television could. Not because games are inherently bad, actually because they're really good at getting people to play them. Almost always for good reasons. They're genuinely fun, there's often transferable skills, it's cognitively stimulating, most of the positive reasons why we actually like games. So overall, I think the most important thing here is just parents being aware of games. I think that's kind of like the main issue here. Actually understanding what their kid is doing and integrating that into their parenthood rather than opting out of understanding a large portion of their kids' lives. As for older individuals where the parents are factoring in a bit less, I think that just does fall down to the quality of their friend network, and unfortunately there are people who will fall through the cracks, and maybe for them, this disorder is an okay categorization. So what does the disease classification mean overall then? Well, I worry it will result in hysteria and overreactions and give ammunition to bad actors in the political scene. I strongly worry about that. It could also open up the way to further research, funding, and support. The legal ramifications could be interesting. what does it mean for labor law and things like benefits? If somebody has a actual gaming disorder disease, from a legal perspective, can they claim disability? I mean, it's weird, isn't it? My personal take is that gaming disorder is a bit of a red herring. I think it's just that games are pretty darn engaging because they're great, and society is pretty lazy when it comes to addressing the core problems that underpin many of the symptoms that present themselves around society. Indeed, look at social media. Do you know what happens when you pull down to refresh the mobile app of Twitter? It actually arbitrarily varies the update time whenever you pull down to refresh. That's a variable time reward that's pretty much trying to hack your brain. Why do you think algorithmic timelines are so popular? Well, each time you refresh, you get something new and different. So you combine that with variable timing and boom, there you go. The Twitter app is crack for your brain. So overall, this WHO decision, I mean, to me, it seems overbearing and not particularly in line with the vast majority of people's, experience. But I do pretty much agree with the UK sentiment. And I bring up that Twitter example to highlight the importance of what I would say is ethical computing. I do think that many of the big tech companies go too far. I do think that they are chasing numbers. They have highly intelligent, geek types who are chasing numbers and maybe not really considering the human impact of what they're doing. And I think some of that does happen with games as well. Less with the super high quality console and PC releases, but I think certainly with mobile. And that's why many of us core gamers would look away, don't really like mobile. So really, I think the best we can do is hope there are no downsides of this classification, and I think we just need to continue fighting against the medium being demonized by the old media. Of course, the old media who are being destroyed by video games. Fortnite is more competition to Netflix than HBO. Remember that. And I believe that's Netflix's own words. Either that or was Peter Moore, who's the CEO of, or was CEO of EA and is now running a football team. Anyway, I mean, you get the point, right? So yeah, it's quite the situation. I at least hope that this has been a jumping off point to some genuinely interesting topics, so I hope you've enjoyed that, and just let me know what your thoughts are down below. Of course, there's loads more videos on the channel, so be sure to check them out. Thank you very much for watching this one, and with that, I'll see you next time.